Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and we are joined today by a special guest, which is the drill outside. Someone is drilling. It's been nice and quiet the whole morning, and I've been able to record a few podcast episodes where it's just been nice and quiet, but they've decided that now is the time for them to drill. Alhamdulillah. Let's just hope that they'll do it sort of like not constantly, but like in intervals, so that we will have moments of peace. I did check the audio from when they were drilling yesterday when I was recording some other episodes, and you can kind of hear it. I think it's more annoying probably to those of you who are not watching the video format but are only listening in your headphones, because you're probably going to pick up on it a little bit more. And so to those of you, I'm really sorry, but I literally can't do anything about it, and I would rather still get you some content than just be like, oh well, and then like not do anything about it at all and not give you anything, because I feel like I've done that a couple of times, and you know what, I'm done with that. Okay, so very apropos, I suppose, that let's talk about today's subject, which is talking about how the things you're avoiding are actually controlling your life. And this is a subject that I think some people speak on it, but I don't see a lot of people talk on it. So let's get in there. And this is, by the way, what I'm about to share today is not necessarily new news. You know, it's not like you've never heard of this before. You might have heard other people talk about it here and there, but I think that we have a tendency to forget about it because it's easy to avoid things. And when we avoid things, it feels like we have a sense of control, when in reality, we're actually losing control to that thing. So it bears reminding, it bears me repeating certain things in this episode, even if you've heard this information before. It serves as a little reminder potentially to you, myself, to other people who might be sitting with this issue. So let's get into it. The things you're avoiding controlling your life, like what? How can the thing that you're avoiding, like if I'm not going somewhere, how can that thing literally control me? Like I'm not anywhere near it. Like if that person bothers me and I'm not going over and spending time with that person, how is that person controlling me? You know, there's a sense of like, it can feel like we're having control over that thing. If I just avoid this thing because it's bringing me discomfort, then I have control over that thing. Now I'm in control of my life because I'm the one who's choosing to avoid it. And so the illusion here is, by avoiding the thing, I have now asserted my dominance and I'm controlling every aspect of my life. And sometimes that can work. There are some cases where that is definitely, yes, you can definitely control it to some facet. However, most of the times, for most of us, when we're avoiding something, we're not avoiding it because like, oh, I'm avoiding eating pork because Allah said I can't have pork, or like avoiding alcohol because Allah said I can't have alcohol. It's not like that. It is an avoidance simply because we don't want to deal with it. Like it's not because, oh, I have to, it's simply because this is making me feel uncomfortable. So it could be conversations with certain people, doing something that you know is going to be difficult to do, but you're avoiding it because it's going to be difficult to do. Something that you know would make your life easier, but you're avoiding it because it's forcing you, if it would force you to do something that is out of your comfort zone. Those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about now. And even those things, you know, we feel like we can assert some type of dominance or control over it when we're avoiding it. That is again, that fake illusion. It doesn't exist. In reality, what we're doing when we're avoiding something that we know we should be dealing with is we're saying, you know what? I let you take control. I will design my life around avoiding you instead of just dealing with you and living my life the way that I want to live it. And that is ultimately what some of us are doing when we're avoiding things and tasks and people and situations. We are literally saying, I will design my whole entire life around this discomfort or potential discomfort so that I am not going to be bothered in that moment. But then the rest of my life, I'm basically going to tiptoe around it to make sure that I'm not somehow reintroducing that discomfort into my life, or that other people potentially are introducing that discomfort into my life. So I want to give you a few examples to show you what this can look like, because I know that just saying it, you're probably like, oh, like I get it, but what do you mean exactly? Because I don't know if I'm actually doing that or if I'm really actually exerting control and dominance over this thing. And I don't like, I'm just saying the word like, you're exerting your dominance over this thing. Like, I just mean it in the sense of like that you're actually taking control of it. Okay. So like, I don't know how else to say it. Sometimes I'll make these words. You know me, you've been here before. We've had this conversation, sis. Why are you making me explain again? I don't know what to explain. Okay, so let's talk about some common things, some common examples that a lot of people fall into. Let's take the example of money, for instance, right? We all want more money, one way or another. Maybe you don't want to become a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. Maybe you just want more than enough. Maybe you just want to be able to pay your bills. Maybe you just want to be able to pay for your children to go to college or whatever. Like maybe there's just like, it doesn't have to be like you're wanting an exorbitant amount of money or something, but money, that there's a concern or worry or anxiety around money. So you want to ask for more money, but in asking for more money, you also know that there are certain things that you could be doing better. So for instance, this could be making a budget. Now, in your mind, living within a budget feels like, I don't want to say poverty, but it feels like you're not living in abundance. It feels restrictive to you. It feels uncomfortable because you will then have to be like, oh, but then I can't just spend my money how I want. Maybe that means I can't just go out and have dinner with my girlfriends. Maybe I can't just go out and buy this handbag if I wanted to, blah, 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 blah. So for a lot of people, the word budget can seem very restrictive. And so when we feel like we want to get a grasp on our finances, quite often it means that we have to put some type of budget also on our finances, at the very least, so we know where our money is going, like what's coming in, what's leaving, right? And a lot of people will avoid doing this work because this mindset of like, it's going to be restrictive. And even if I just have to do it for a year or something till I paid off this debt or till I paid off this, whatever it is I want to pay up or save up for, it can feel really restrictive. So a lot of people will avoid making a budget because it feels more freeing in that moment. Like it is easier not to set a budget and just spend your money, but then, you know, the long-term sort of the long-term side effect, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, the long-term cost, apropos finances, I didn't mean to do that, but here we are. The long-term cost of not setting up that budget means that you then continuously struggle with your finances. So even when you're getting more money in, you can't appreciate it because it goes out as quickly as it comes in. So you'll never feel abundant, right? So we're avoiding, for instance, setting a budget for ourselves, perhaps canceling some subscriptions that we're no longer using or we can't really justify the usage of. So many people have multiple streaming services, for instance, because they want to have access to both Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and something else. And it's like, is there really a need for that? I mean, if you can afford it and you want it, have a go at it. But like, you know, stuff like that, when you sit down and you look at where your money is actually going, and it can be uncomfortable sometimes because you realize, oh, I maybe am spending a little bit too frivolously on a specific subject or a specific thing. And I didn't really want to admit that to myself, but now I can't really deny it, right? So you can be avoiding making that budget. But the truth is that now that your finances, your money is now controlling your life, because you will always be living according to what your desires tell you to buy in that moment. So you'll always have that debt. You will always struggle to, you know, save up that money because you're avoiding doing the work of potentially setting a budget. Now, this is just one example. Okay, I'm going to give some more, a couple of other examples as well. But by avoiding doing that work of taking responsibility of your finances, potentially even, it might not even be like doing a budget. It could just be like taking stock, making sure that you're writing down how much you're spending on groceries every month or something like that. It could also be, as I said, canceling a bunch of stuff that make life easier but is not necessary. It could be, I had an example and now it just kind of like completely just left my brain again. My brain is not very sticky, guys. And smooth, no ridges and lumps or somethings and somethings. I can't remember how it goes, but that's like my brain sometimes, because like a thought will come in and it'll just slide right off again. Oh gosh, I had an example and it was so good. It was so good. Okay, well, I will trust that if it's meant to come up, then it'll come back again. But ultimately, when we're avoiding doing that work and taking control of our finances, that is now controlling our life. It's controlling our happiness, our stress levels. It's making us feel uncertain about finances and money instead of feeling safe about it. And so it's controlling our life to the point where we continue to live in debt, for instance. We continue to be unable to do the things that we want to do financially because, I've remembered again. Okay, 1 second. Let me just put that in there. I'm just going to write that as a note because I'm going to forget it otherwise again. Smooth brain. Where does that sound come from? Okay, so it now controls our life in a way. It's controlling us. We're not in control of our finances. Our finances are in control of us. We keep getting the bills that we can't keep up with. We keep getting notified of, past due bills. We keep getting invitations to things like travels and holidays that we can't afford. We keep feeling like, I want to be able to do all of these things, but I can't because my money is limited. And it's all because you've decided to avoid dealing with your finances to begin with. It was because you decided not to do the budget. It's because you decided not to audit your income. It's because you decided not to be in control of what comes in versus what's going out. The thing that I wanted to say before, it might not necessarily be that you do a budget or something. It could also be that you know that you could overcome this debt or save up quicker or something if you take on an extra job. Find a way to make extra money. A lot of people do this, by the way, and I know that there's a few of you out there, like I've spoken to a few of you and I know a few of you out there are doing this. You're sitting on a ton of money in your closet, clothes that you don't wear, but it is boring to sit down and take a bunch of pictures and put it up on Vinted or eBay or whatever people sell clothes these days. I used to use eBay back in the day when I was doing it. And because it's such a boring thing, so we're avoiding it. It's so boring to do, so I don't want to do it. And you're sitting on money. And then you're complaining about not having enough money. And then it controls your life because you keep coming back to the same issue. I don't have money. And in reality, you have the solution. You're just not taking action on it. Okay. And even if it's something like, but Zara, I've taken on an extra job, then I'm not going to have, a social life for the next year. Yeah, but then after that year, that year is going to pass regardless. Would you rather that it passes and nothing has changed, or that it's passed and everything is changed and everything is different, right? So look at it instead of like, what am I looking at right now in my budget, my finances, for instance, that I'm trying to avoid doing because I'm just avoiding the momentary discomfort of doing that job? And what is the ultimate gain of doing it? And how is it currently controlling my life by me avoiding it? Okay, the second example, ladies, listen up, especially those of you who are single and want to get married and you're struggling to make a connection. And perhaps it's even bleeding into your friendships, but specifically right now, I'm talking to those of you who want to get married. Therapy. Therapy, working on yourself, developing yourself, investing in yourself, understanding your worth, doing the work on you. So many women, men as well, it's not just women, but now I'm talking to you ladies, so it's for you girls. So many women think still to this day that marriage will solve all of their problems, not understanding that the fact that they are not working on themselves and solving their own problems, they are actually making a successful marriage that much harder for them to find, because they are attracting from a position where they are broken and they're looking for someone to fix them. And at the same time of looking at to find somebody to fix them or fix their situation or their life, they're also expecting to find somebody who's an equal, but equal but not equal, because he has to fix me as well and he has to save me from my life. My darling, you have to save yourself first. Whether that be through coaching, through therapy, through your spirituality, however it might be, but ultimately investing in yourself first. getting to know yourself first, falling in love with yourself first, not in a narcissistic kind of way, but appreciating yourself first, forgiving yourself for things that you've done in the past, showing yourself that grace and mercy, and then you can attract a partner who can do those same things for you. But you cannot expect to go out there and find all of those traits in a person if you can't even contain it for yourself. You will find somebody who might be able to give you those things, but not in the way that you want it, and it might even turn out to be quite a toxic situation because you might become too dependent on that person to give you those things, and ultimately you will then sabotage that relationship because you haven't put in that effort first. And so a lot of people now, when we want to attract someone, we're not thinking I need to work on myself. We're thinking I need to look at what the other person's going to give me. And yes, that is a good place also. Like, we need to make sure that we know what we want and need from a partner. But when we don't work on ourselves, we keep all the toxicity that we have, all the damages and flaws and the self-sabotaging behavior, they're still left untouched within ourselves. And that's controlling the way that we are able or unable to potentially connect with a future partner. So if you don't do that work, you're avoiding looking inwards, you're avoiding the therapy, you're avoiding investing in yourself, you're avoiding taking yourself out on dates and fixing your own problems and doing better with your life and doing all of those things that you want to do until you meet a partner. But in reality, that one thing controls whether or not you can meet a partner. That is the very thing that could be pushing that potential partner away because you are not interested in doing that work for yourself first and foremost. So that is how you avoiding that kind of work is contributing to controlling that aspect of your life. I've said this before to a couple of the ladies that I've worked with around this subject, and I'm going to ask you the same question because this is, I don't know how to say it clearer than this one way, which is, if you met yourself but in a male format, you know your mistakes, your flaws, everything, and you met that in a man, would you be attracted to that? And the answer is usually no, not really, because I know I've got some stuff I need to work on. And actually, if I met a partner or a man who thought as little of themselves as I may think of myself, or who lacked the confidence the way that I lack confidence, or that was expecting me to, just bring the home and the finances in order and whatever, then I would probably be a little bit turned off by that, right? So look at it that way, that is what you're bringing to the table right now. I hate that kind of conversation of what do you bring to the table? But it's the truth. It's the truth. You're both of you going to bring something to the table in a relationship, and look at what you're bringing as well. So instead of looking at it as like, oh, he has to just take me out of my toxic household, my family, and also I have these traumas, I'm not going to work on it. I'm just kind of hoping and assuming they're going to disappear when I get married and I have children, and I have no job to speak of, no money. I would have to be completely dependent on him, and he has to be okay with it, but also, not let money get in between us. I don't know, whatever that goes on in our heads when we're saying all of these things. It starts and ends with you. So if you're avoiding doing that work for yourself, you are ultimately potentially also pushing away a partner, and it's controlling the way that you are at this point potentially unable to make a genuine connection with someone that could be a beautiful partner for you otherwise in life. Okay, last example here that I'm going to speak on today, and inshallah that'll give you some thoughts on what you may be avoiding in your life that actually maybe I need to take the time now to do something about it, because otherwise 20 years from now it'll be the same issue again. And that is when we seek peace, when we seek clarity, when we seek that stress-free life, but we don't want to declutter our house. We don't want to clean. We don't want to organize ourselves. And I know that sounds really simple, doesn't it? It sounds like, oh, Zara, you're oversimplifying or something. But hear me out. There's actually quite a bit of truth to this, and it's not just organizing, your junk drawer. It's not just about organizing your wardrobe or whatever. But often our physical space has just as much to do with our mental, our inner world. And so when we feel unorganized, when we feel chaos, and when we feel stressed and anxious, quite often our environment, our physical environment, plays a huge role in whether or not it supports peace or it actually backs up the chaos that we're feeling inside. So if you're thinking, oh, well, once I have another home, or once I've made enough money to, get a cleaner or whatever, then I'll deal with that issue. No, deal with that so that you can get to the point where you can outsource, or you can live bigger, or get a bigger wardrobe, or whatever. But you need to deal first with the clutter. You need to deal first with the organizational things. This is not just in the physical. So you might be like, but Zara, I have that, but my mind is still cluttered. So deal with the mind clutter. And this could be anything from brain dumping on a regular basis. It could be having coaching or therapy, so you've got somewhere to vent and get all of your thoughts out. It could be, doing anything, meditating, speaking to Allah. There are so many ways to organize even the mental clutter that we can utilize at any moment in time. But yeah, it's not always romantic or cutesy or fun, because it requires of us to actually take a moment and sit down and turn off, like, maybe the music, the podcast, the TikToks, and sit down and do that work. And it can be boring. It can feel uncomfortable at times, because sometimes thoughts and whatever might come up for us that we're like, ooh, I didn't like that very much. Or like, why am I thinking those things? Or why is that like a recurring thought or memory or whatever? And it can be uncomfortable to deal with. So a lot of times we will want to try avoid it. But the problem is it now becomes a controlling factor in our life, and controlling factor in, like, I never get peace. I never have clarity because my mind is always jumbled up. I never feel peace at home because my home is messy, and so when I need to find peace, I can't just be at home. I have to leave. I have to go somewhere all the time. So think of those examples. I'm going to use also, actually, I'm going to give you one more example, and then I'm going to share an example from my own life as well of something that I was avoiding out of fear, and how that limited my life and controlled my life in a very big way. But this can also, and I feel it's necessary to say, this can also be a person, that you're avoiding a specific person because you might not want to have a particularly uncomfortable conversation with them about something maybe that they did, maybe you did to them. And you're thinking, well, if I just avoid this person, I don't have to have that conversation with them anyway. So like, what's the harm in that, right? The problem is that when we're doing that, sometimes we can be a little bit successful with it in that, we might live very far away from them, so we don't really think about it to that extent or whatever. But then we have, especially if it's something where we have wronged them, we have to deal with that in after this life, in whatever sphere where it is we have to, settle, those kinds of things with other people before we can go to heaven, I can't remember all the correct terms for all of that, but you know exactly what I mean, where we have to settle debts and apologize and ask forgiveness from people we have wronged, so on and so forth. So it'll come back to you. And so if you're aware of those things, it's still going to control your life, because you're going to walk around with that like, ooh, maybe I really should. And you're going to keep thinking about it from time to time. And especially when you're feeling bad, you're going to have that to control again, a little bit more of that anxiety and stress that you're going to feel around that, right? And another way is if that person is in close vicinity of you, like maybe you live in the same town, and how many of you avoid going to certain places because you know that person might be there. I've done it before. But it's like, I've avoided going into that shop because I know they work there, or I avoid going to that place because I know that they like to frequent that place or whatever. And it's all literally because I'm trying to avoid a person, right? It could be a boss, a colleague, or like whatever. And it's the same thing. It controls you now, because now you can't just move freely. Now you have to avoid certain places. You can't just go out the way that you want to go out, or speak to certain people because they might still be speaking to that person. So you're always like aware of it or whatever, right? It's not always in like these grandiose ways that it's controlling us, but it's still asserting control. And so again, we are not controlling the situation. The situation is controlling us and our behavior around that situation. One way, and I'm going to give you this example and I'm going to end on that inshallah, is when it's around fear. So I, for many years, had a fear of flying. I don't know how it came about, but I just all of a sudden developed a fear of flying, and it was controlling my life. Like, it usually from a day-to-day basis, no, it wasn't controlling my life. But then this was at the time that I was living in London, and so when I wanted to go back home and visit my mum and dad and my sisters and stuff, I couldn't just jump on a flight. Listen, from Copenhagen to London, like, that's an hour and a half flight, maybe 2 hours, depending on which airport you're flying from in London, but maximum 2 hours. It's an easy, relatively cheap flight, okay? I couldn't do that. No, because that would mean that I would have to face my fear of flying and get on a flight, right? So I avoided it. And by avoiding it, I now had to travel for a good 21 hours because I had to take the trains down France, up Belgium, through Germany, up through Denmark, and up to Copenhagen. And it would take me 21 hours. And it was several trains. It wasn't just a train. There was a lot of pit stops. It was a lot of schlepping my bags around uncomfortably, sleeping on like sleeper trains and having to wake up like after 2 hours because that was your stop. And it really wasn't comfortable. Like, I can romanticize anything pretty much, but that was not fun. And I would do that several times. And it was also, by the way, extremely expensive. It's so expensive to travel by train in comparison to flying, especially when you're traveling at quite a distance. So it was controlling my life in that I couldn't just jump on a flight and visit my family when I wanted to. And yeah, it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't like an everyday occurrence, but it was at moments that it mattered, right? Oh, you want to go on holiday? Can we just stay in England? Like, no, I want to go where there's sunshine. I wanted to go travel to like beautiful places and things as well. And I couldn't do that because that one thing that I was avoiding, and it was out of fear at this point, but it's still the same, was, again, and fear is uncomfortability. Remember that. It's the same thing. It's linked, right? There's no comfortable fear. Fear is very uncomfortable. Putting myself in that uncomfortable position and doing that work around the fear of flying and whatever, kept me stuck physically to a location, or made it so that I had to find the most ridiculous ways of traveling that honestly, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Alhamdulillah, I overcame my fear of flying. I can definitely make a podcast episode of that. Well, it's not really that relevant to what we're doing here, but anyway, it's just a really interesting way that I did it, and I definitely want to share. So if if you have a fear of flying and want to work on that, book a one-on-one with me, and we'll have a conversation. Because I did it myself through various methods, and all of it accumulatively. Because I had enough. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this controlling my life. And then I changed it, and now I fly really comfortably. In fact, I enjoy flying at this point. But the point is that it was really limiting my life and restricting me in those moments when I wanted to use distance, or I wanted to travel, or I wanted to visit someone, or whatever. And you don't realize how much control these things have over your life until it shows up. And I'm sure you can think of things right now, as I've given you all of these examples and talked you through how it can show up, that you're probably thinking, yeah, you know what, I'm actually avoiding doing that work, but I know that doing that work will get me the results that I want. Or I'm avoiding having this conversation with this person, but having that conversation will actually make it easier for me to work with that person, or save a friendship, or whatever. Or if I just did that one thing, or if I worked on myself, if I understood how to work with my confidence levels and my shyness and whatever, then I would value myself more, and then other people might be able to value me as well, because they will see my real me rather than look at the facade that I'm putting up to protect myself, so on and so forth. So what I want you to do at the end of this episode is think about somewhere in your life where you think you're exerting control by avoiding something, and look at the ways that it, in fact, is controlling you, where that avoidance is actually making that thing control certain aspects of your life. And then I want you, my darling, to finally do something about it. If you need help with any of this, feel free to sign up for a one-on-one coaching session. We can do that work together if you're struggling to figure out how, or you can sign up to my membership. We'd be happy to invite you, to welcome you in the group, and we can also do it there together, inshallah. My darling, that's all I have for you today. I hope to see you again next week for next week's episode, inshallah. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.